This happened quite a few years ago, back when I was still pretty young, and the internet was just starting to evolve into the beast it is now. Like many people in college, I'd gotten into weed in high school and kept going from there. But my local dealers were unreliable, and the prices weren't exactly friendly, so I started experimenting with the dark web. At first, it felt like I'd discovered a hidden world. Anonymous sellers, low prices, and creative delivery methods. Small packages tucked inside books, Bibles, even electronics. For a while, it worked. I found a seller I liked, and for 3 months we did regular business. Then one day he messaged me something new, said he'd be in my area and could make a big drop, save both of us the hassle of mailing. I was skeptical at first, but the offer was good. Too good, really. What would normally cost around $11,000 in product, he was offering for just $500. He called it a favor, said he was clearing out inventory. All I had to do was meet him in person in a nearby park at 2 a.m. I didn't want him knowing where I lived, so I agreed to meet under one of the old street lamps near a tree 3 blocks away from my place. No cameras, no witnesses. Under the cover of darkness, it would be a simple exchange. Quick in, quick out. As the day drew near, my nerves started to flare. I realized I didn't know anything about this guy, not even his real name. He knew where I lived, what I was buying, how often I used, but I didn't even know what he looked like. Still, I kept telling myself it would be fine. That night, I pulled $500 from the ATM and tried to stay calm. I didn't have a gun, and there was no way to get one that late. All I had was a small pocket knife, which I slid into my jeans just in case. I felt paranoid, but I chalked it up to nerves. Just a deal, just a park, no big deal. Around 1:30 a.m., I headed out. I lit a smoke and walked through the empty streets, music playing low in my earbuds. I got to the spot early and sat under the flickering lamplight, trying to keep my cool. Time dragged. 2 o'clock came and went. 2:10. Nothing. 2:20. Still no sign. Then, around 2:25, I saw a man approaching in the distance. Alone, hooded, moving quickly. This has to be him, I thought. Everything about him screamed caution, his pace, his posture. He walked right past me without a word, then stopped under the tree and waved me over. I approached. He opened his jacket and handed me a small black bag. I peeked inside. It looked legit, just what I'd been expecting. I reached into my wallet and gave him the cash. That's when things changed. He looked down at the money and frowned. This is only $500. Yeah, I said. That's what we agreed, remember? The special deal. He shook his head. No, dude, the price is $1,000. Hand over the rest. I stood there stunned. That's not what you said. I can't get more tonight. Just sell me half. That's when he got aggressive. You wasted my time, bro. And that's when I heard the click behind me. I froze. A second man had crept up from behind, and I could feel the cold pressure of a pistol barrel against my back. Why didn't you bring the full amount? A deep voice asked. My heart slammed against my ribs. Another figure began walking toward us from the trees, slowly. Should have brought all the money, he said flatly. Then, nothing. Everything went black. I woke up hours later, lying face down in the dirt. My head was pounding. They'd taken my wallet, of course. And the bag? Still there. I opened it, nothing but paracetamol. A joke. I stumbled home, furious and humiliated. I'd been scammed, robbed, and lucky to be alive. I wanted to report it, but who could I go to? I'd met a drug dealer from the dark web in the middle of the night. I was on my own. When I returned to the forum I'd used to contact him, the seller's account was gone, wiped clean. Maybe he'd just made a new one under another name. Maybe he'd done this before. Maybe I was just the next in a long line of fools. Just be careful. Things might have changed since then, but the dangers are still real. If you meet someone online, especially in the darkest corners of the web, don't fool yourself into thinking you know who you're dealing with. You don't. And sometimes, you won't realize it until a gun is pressing against your back. What I'm about to share happened in 2018. At the time, I was living in the state of Michoacán, Mexico, and working at a company called Masa, a large manufacturer of corn flour, one of the most consumed staples in the country. I worked in production. Among the people I occasionally interacted with was one of the factory guards, a woman around my age. We weren't close friends, but over time we built a casual, friendly bond, exchanging gossip during shift changes, chatting during slow moments. Then, one day, she didn't show up for work. No one said anything, just that she didn't come in. Another day passed, then two. Still no word. I assumed maybe she was sick or had taken some emergency leave. We all have lives outside the factory, after all. On my next day off, I had some quiet time to myself. As a single mom, most of my days are consumed by my job and my children, and I usually only get to scroll through my phone in the afternoons or when I'm off. That day, I was browsing Facebook when I came across a video that stopped me cold. It was her, my coworker, the security guard. She looked completely distraught, like she had just witnessed something out of a nightmare. In the video, her hands were shaking, her breathing was shallow, and she was barely holding it together. Her face was pale, her voice trembling, and she was crying uncontrollably. She said she had just seen something horrifying. According to her, a large trailer had arrived at the factory, stacked high with pallets. But they weren't carrying materials. She said the pallets were filled with what looked like the dismembered remains of children, stacked like meat, as if they were nothing. She repeated it several times, sobbing, screaming, unable to process what she had witnessed. She said it wasn't just a glance. She saw everything. I was so shocked I sent her a message immediately on WhatsApp, but she didn't reply. Her last online status showed she was active 24 hours after the video had been posted. And then, nothing. Again, I didn't think too much of it at first. Life was hectic. I was juggling work and the kids. I assumed maybe she'd gone somewhere. Maybe she was hiding out. Maybe it was stress or some kind of panic attack. She was a single mom too. She had a 9-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, bright, quiet kids. She lived not too far from me, so a couple of days later, after getting someone to watch my children, I decided to stop by her place. But there was no one there. I asked the neighbor. They told me that one night a white van, one of those used for a company personnel transport, pulled up outside her house. She and her 2 children climbed inside. And that was it. They were gone, left everything behind. It felt wrong, too quiet, too sudden. I had a sick feeling I couldn't shake. 2 days later, the news broke, though only in whispers, not headlines. A homeless man had found a suitcase dumped in an area where garbage and debris are often abandoned. When police arrived, they opened it. Inside were the mutilated remains of a woman. It was her. When I heard the news, it didn't feel real. I couldn't breathe. I rushed back to Facebook to find the video again. It was still there. The comments had exploded. One said, "Poor woman, they're going to take her now. She should have just gone home." Another read, "She saw something she wasn't supposed to. She's not going to make it." But the one that chilled me to the bone was this: "I hope she doesn't have children. For being nosy, they'll do the same to hers as they did to those in the truck." That comment alone had over 200 replies. I read every single one. People were saying that what she saw was one of the dark web transport units, vehicles that moved between cities carrying victims who had been trafficked or sold in auctions online. Some even claimed these trailers passed through different regions daily, unnoticed. Until then, I had only heard vague rumors about the dark web. I thought it was just a corner of the internet where hackers hung out. But these comments described something else, something much more disturbing. People talked about children being sold by their own parents, others being taken off the streets, all rented out like commodities for perverse entertainment. And according to these people, the bodies were discarded when they were no longer of use. When I sorted the comments by most recent, some were already referencing the discovery of the suitcase. They knew. They had seen this kind of thing before. Some tried to discredit her, saying she was probably hallucinating or on drugs. But that wasn't her. She didn't smoke, didn't drink, and certainly wasn't the type to fabricate something like this. I knew her well enough to know that. If what she said wasn't true, then why was she silenced? What truly terrifies me to this day is not just what happened to her, but what didn't happen afterward. No major news outlets covered her death. A few small blogs referenced the video, but no one mentioned the suitcase. In a country like ours, where every femicide typically makes front-page news, this was silence. That's what convinced me this was being hidden on purpose. She spoke the truth, and they made sure no one listened. And as for her children, they were never found, not a trace, not a word, not even a follow-up investigation. I think about that comment every single day. They'll do to her children what they did to those. It plays in my head like a curse, because deep down, I know whoever took her didn't stop there. This happened when I was a dumb 20-year-old addicted to online games. My laptop was broken, so I borrowed my older brother's without asking. While searching for games, I found a weird site. This was before I even used Facebook, and many of these sites were unsafe. But I didn't care. I typed in "cool games not boring," scrolled through links, and then a strange pop-up appeared. Death games. It felt different. I clicked. The screen was blank for a moment, then red text appeared. "Do you want to watch someone die?" Click submit to continue. It looked cheesy, bloody letters and all, but I stayed on the page. The button started blinking. Scared? Don't be. It's just a game. I clicked. The animation loaded. It was crude, 3 characters like twisted cartoons. 2 men in robber outfits stood beside a woman tied to a chair. She was shaking, animated to look terrified. One man turned and said, "Do you want to see her die?" His voice was distorted, like it had been altered. 2 buttons appeared, yes or no. I hesitated, but the man snapped, "You clicked. You want to see? Just do it." So I clicked yes. One man put on a butcher's apron. What followed was horrifying. He dismembered the woman alive with a hacksaw. Her screams were way too real. The sound of bones, gurgling, sobbing. It felt like I was listening to a recording of an actual murder. I felt cold. Then, "Did you like it? Want to see something better?" I clicked yes again. Now the scene changed. Same 2 men, now in scuba gear. A guy in a suit stood at the edge of a pond, tied up. A sign popped up. "Do you want to watch him die?" I clicked yes again. The man was dragged into the water. He screamed, struggled, begged. A splash. Silence. Then he surfaced, arms gone, body torn. Something dragged him back under. A massive alligator appeared and took him for good. I wanted to stop. I felt sick. But the screen changed again. Now the men weren't cartoons, they were real. In a gray room, wearing white masks. Next to them was a mutilated woman. One held a bloody suit on a hook. the voice said. Fun, wasn't it? You asked for this. Don't leave. You'll ruin everything. I froze. Those weren't animations. They had disguised real murders as cartoons. 3 buttons appeared. Yes, I want to experiment. No, I don't. I want to meet you. I hit no, repeatedly. Finally, the site closed. I sat sweating, trembling. I checked my history. Nothing. It was gone. Then my brother came home. I told him everything. He turned pale, pulled me away from the computer, ran a bunch of commands, then shut it off. That wasn't a normal site, he said. It was from the dark web. You saw something real. I said we should call the police, but he warned me not to. It's dangerous. Don't talk about this. He said he'd take care of it. I don't know how. I never saw that site again, but I never forgot it.